What would happen if you stopped waiting? What would happen if, for just a moment, you released the belief that your happiness depends on something arriving in the future? What if the abundance you seek, the love you desire, the opportunities you dream about, and the success you long for are not as far away as they seem? What if the only thing standing between you and a greater experience of life is the state from which you are viewing it? Most people spend their lives chasing. They chase money, relationships, recognition, security, and countless other desires. They believe that once they finally obtain these things, they will feel complete. They imagine a future moment when everything will fall into place and fulfillment will finally arrive. Yet even after achieving one goal, another desire often takes its place. The search continues because fulfillment was never meant to come from the outside. The truth is that fulfillment is not a destination. It is a state of consciousness. It is a way of being. The moment you stop identifying with lack and begin identifying with abundance, something profound begins to change. You no longer see yourself as someone trying to get something from life. You begin seeing yourself as someone who is already blessed, already supported, and already complete. When you feel incomplete, you chase. When you feel complete, you receive. This is the great shift. It is the movement from effort to trust, from striving to allowing, from longing to fulfillment. It is the realization that what you seek is not separate from you. It is already moving toward you because you have accepted it within yourself. Today, we will explore 5 powerful principles that can help you enter this state. These principles will show you how to stop living from lack, how to awaken the feeling of abundance, and how to walk through life with the quiet certainty that everything you need is already finding its way to you. Because the moment you truly know that you are blessed, fulfilled, and complete, you stop asking whether life will give you what you desire. You begin expecting it naturally. And that changes everything. One of the greatest misunderstandings in life is the belief that fulfillment comes from external circumstances. From an early age, many people are taught that happiness exists somewhere in the future. They are told that they will feel complete when they achieve a certain goal, earn a certain amount of money, find the right relationship, receive recognition, or reach a particular milestone. As a result, they spend years chasing experiences, believing that fulfillment is waiting for them just beyond their current situation. Yet, no matter how much they accomplish, the feeling of completeness often remains temporary because they are searching for something within themselves in places where it cannot permanently be found. The truth is that fulfillment begins within. It is not something the world gives to you. It is a state of consciousness that you choose. The outer world may provide opportunities, experiences, and circumstances, but the feeling of wholeness originates from within your own awareness. When you depend entirely on external conditions for happiness, you place your peace in the hands of circumstances you cannot always control. You become vulnerable to every delay, setback, and disappointment. Your emotional state rises and falls with events around you. But when fulfillment comes from within, you carry a source of stability that remains available regardless of temporary conditions. Think about how often people postpone their happiness. They tell themselves, when I get this job, when I find this relationship, then I will feel complete. When I achieve this goal, then I will finally relax. Notice what happens in this pattern. Fulfillment is always moved into the future. It is never allowed to exist in the present moment. The mind becomes conditioned to believe that something is missing now, and that happiness can only arrive later. This creates a cycle of waiting. Even when one desire is fulfilled, another soon takes its place because the habit of postponing fulfillment remains unchanged. A different approach begins when you recognize that the feeling you seek can be cultivated today. Ask yourself how you would feel if your greatest desire were already fulfilled. Perhaps you would feel grateful. Perhaps you would feel secure. Perhaps you would feel peaceful, confident, or free. These emotions do not belong exclusively to the future. They are available now. You do not need permission from the outside world to experience gratitude. You do not need a completed goal to experience confidence. You do not need perfect circumstances to experience peace. These states can be chosen and developed from within. This realization changes everything. Instead of living as someone who is waiting to become fulfilled, you begin living as someone who already is fulfilled. You stop viewing your desires as conditions for happiness and start viewing them as natural expressions of a fulfilled life. The desire may still exist, but it no longer controls your emotional well-being. You want it, but you do not need it to validate your worth or complete your identity. When fulfillment begins within, your relationship with life changes. You become less fearful because your peace is not dependent on outcomes. You become more confident because your self-worth is not tied to external approval. You become more grateful because you stop focusing exclusively on what is missing and begin appreciating what is already present. Most importantly, you stop living from lack. Instead of approaching life as someone trying to fill an inner void, you approach it as someone who already possesses a sense of completeness. There is a quiet power in this state. People who feel fulfilled within themselves do not carry the same desperation that often accompanies desire. They do not constantly chase validation. They do not need every circumstance to unfold perfectly in order to feel at peace. They move through life with a deeper sense of trust because they understand that fulfillment is an inner experience first. This does not make them passive, it makes them free. So if you truly want to transform your experience, begin here. Stop waiting for the world to provide the feeling you seek. Turn inward and cultivate it yourself. Practice gratitude before the blessing arrives. Practice confidence before the evidence appears. Practice peace before circumstances improve. The more you do this, the more natural fulfillment becomes. And when fulfillment becomes your state, you no longer experience life as someone who is lacking something. You experience life as someone who is already blessed, already whole, and already complete. That is where true abundance begins. One of the most empowering shifts you can make is to stop seeing yourself as someone endlessly chasing what you desire and begin seeing yourself as someone moving into alignment with what already belongs to you. Most people spend their lives pursuing opportunities, relationships, success, abundance, and happiness as though these things exist far away from them. They feel as though they must struggle, compete, and constantly prove themselves worthy in order to receive what they want. This perspective creates tension because it is built upon the assumption of separation. It suggests that your desire is somewhere outside of you and that you must somehow bridge the distance between where you are and where you want to be. But consider a different possibility. What if the desire itself appeared because there is a corresponding reality available to you? What if your longing is not evidence of separation, but evidence of potential connection? Just as a seed contains the blueprint for the tree it will become, every genuine desire may point toward a possibility that already exists within your reach. The desire and its fulfillment are not enemies. They are part of the same experience. One calls you forward, and the other waits to be accepted. Think about how often people operate from the energy of pursuit. They wake up every day wondering how they can force something to happen. They constantly check for progress. They worry about timing. They become discouraged when they do not immediately see results. In doing so, They reinforce the feeling that what they want is distant. Their thoughts are centered on absence rather than possession. They are always running towards something that seems to remain just beyond reach. Yet there is another way to approach life. Instead of chasing, begin receiving. Instead of asking, "How do I get this?" ask, "How would I feel if this were already moving toward me?" This subtle shift changes your relationship with your desire. You stop treating it as something that must be captured. You begin treating it as something that is naturally unfolding. The energy of struggle starts to dissolve because you are no longer trying to force an outcome. You are allowing yourself to become receptive to it. Imagine standing under the sunlight. You do not chase the light. You simply position yourself where it can reach you. In a similar way, many of the experiences you desire are not accessed through constant struggle, but through alignment. When you cultivate the feelings of gratitude, confidence, peace, and expectation, you place yourself in a state that is more receptive to opportunities and possibilities. You stop operating from fear and begin operating from trust. This does not mean that every desire will appear instantly or exactly as imagined. It means that your focus shifts from forcing results to becoming the person who is capable of receiving them. The more you embody the state of fulfillment, the less you feel compelled to chase. And the less you chase, the more open you become to the unexpected ways life can bring opportunities into your experience. Many people discover this principle after years of effort. They spend months or even years pursuing something intensely. Then, when they finally relax and stop making it the center of their existence, circumstances begin to change, opportunities arise, new connections appear, solutions emerge. It seems almost mysterious, but the deeper reason is often that they have stopped resisting. They have stopped affirming separation. They have stopped telling themselves that what they want is far away. When you truly understand that what you are seeking is also seeking expression through you, a sense of peace begins to replace urgency. You no longer feel as though you are fighting against life. Instead, you feel as though you are cooperating with it. You trust that the right opportunities can find you. You trust that the right people can enter your experience. You trust that the right outcomes can unfold in their own time. So stop seeing yourself as a person running after fulfillment. Stop believing that everything you desire is beyond your reach. Begin viewing your desires as invitations to a greater experience of life. Begin trusting that the same intelligence that planted the desire within you is capable of guiding its fulfillment. Let go of the exhausting habit of chasing and embrace the quieter power of receiving. Because the moment you stop living as someone who is searching desperately for what is missing, you begin living as someone who recognizes that life is already moving in your direction. And when you carry that awareness, you discover a remarkable truth. What you are seeking may be closer than you ever imagined, because in many ways, it has been seeking you all along. Gratitude is one of the most powerful states a person can experience, yet it is often misunderstood. Many people think gratitude is simply saying, "Thank you," for the good things that happen in life. While appreciation for blessings is certainly valuable, true gratitude goes much deeper. It is not merely a reaction to favorable circumstances. It is a state of consciousness. It is a way of seeing life that shifts your attention away from what is missing and directs it toward what is already present. And when your attention changes, your entire experience begins to change with it. Most people have trained themselves to focus on lack. They constantly notice what they do not have, what has not happened yet, and what still needs to be fixed. They compare themselves to others, measure their progress against unrealistic expectations, and spend their days thinking about problems rather than possibilities. Without realizing it, they develop a habit of scarcity. Even when blessings appear, their attention quickly moves to the next concern. Because of this pattern, they rarely experience the deep sense of fulfillment that gratitude can provide. Gratitude interrupts this cycle. It asks you to pause and acknowledge the abundance that already exists in your life. It reminds you that not everything is missing. Not everything is delayed. There are gifts, opportunities, relationships, lessons, strengths, and experiences that deserve recognition. The moment you begin noticing these things, your perspective shifts. Life no longer appears as a list of deficiencies. It begins to reveal itself as a collection of blessings. Think about how different you feel when you are genuinely grateful. Your mind becomes calmer. Your heart feels lighter. The need to complain, compare, or worry begins to fade. For a moment, you stop living from lack and start living from abundance. This emotional shift is important because your state of consciousness influences the way you interpret and respond to life. When you feel grateful, you naturally become more open, more hopeful, and more receptive. One of the most remarkable aspects of gratitude is that it can be practiced before a desire appears. Most people believe they must wait until their wish is fulfilled before they can be thankful. But gratitude becomes even more powerful when it is experienced in advance. Imagine feeling thankful for something that has not yet become visible. Imagine carrying the emotional certainty that your desire is already part of your reality. This kind of gratitude is not based on evidence. It is based on trust. It is an acknowledgement that fulfillment begins within before it is reflected without. When you feel grateful in advance, you are no longer identifying with the state of waiting. You are identifying with the state of having. You are emotionally accepting the reality of your desire before circumstances have fully confirmed it. This does not mean pretending. It means choosing to focus on the feeling of fulfillment rather than the appearance of absence. It means allowing gratitude to become a bridge between where you are and the state you wish to occupy. Gratitude also changes the way you experience everyday life. Instead of rushing through your days focused solely on future goals, you begin appreciating the present moment. You notice small blessings that previously went unnoticed. A kind conversation, a beautiful sunrise, an unexpected opportunity, a lesson learned through difficulty. These experiences take on greater meaning. The more you appreciate them, the more abundant life begins to feel. There is another reason gratitude is so transformative. It removes resistance. When people focus exclusively on what they lack, they often create feelings of frustration, impatience, and disappointment. These emotions reinforce the idea that something important is missing. Gratitude dissolves that tension. It reminds you that there is already goodness available to you now. As this realization grows, your dependence on future outcomes begins to weaken. You become less desperate and more at peace. So make gratitude a daily practice. Do not wait for perfect circumstances before allowing yourself to appreciate life. Look for reasons to be thankful now. Celebrate what is working. Acknowledge the blessings that already surround you. And when you think about your desires, allow gratitude to accompany them as though they are already fulfilled. Because gratitude is more than a pleasant emotion. It is a powerful shift in awareness. It changes what you focus on, what you expect, and how you experience the world. The more grateful you become, the more abundance you begin to recognize. And the more abundance you recognize, the more naturally you live from the state of being blessed, fulfilled, and complete. That is why gratitude does not merely respond to abundance. It opens the door to more of it. One of the most transformative ideas you can embrace is the simple assumption that your desire is already yours. At first, This may seem difficult because the mind has been trained to rely on physical evidence. Most people believe they can only accept something as real after they see it, touch it, or experience it through their senses. As a result, they spend much of their lives reacting to appearances. If circumstances look favorable, they feel confident. If circumstances seem unfavorable, they become discouraged. Their inner state constantly changes because it is dependent upon external conditions. But true transformation begins when you reverse this process. Instead of allowing the outer world to determine your assumptions, you allow your assumptions to determine the way you experience the outer world. This requires a willingness to accept a new reality inwardly before it becomes visible outwardly. It requires faith in the unseen. It requires the courage to feel fulfilled before there is physical proof. Most people approach their desires from the state of wanting. They think about what they want. They talk about what they want. They dream about what they want. Yet throughout the entire process, they continue reinforcing the idea that they do not have it. Every time they say, I hope this happens someday, they affirm distance. Every time they wonder when it will arrive, they affirm absence. Every time they focus on what is missing, they strengthen the state of lack. Assuming it is already yours changes this pattern completely. Instead of thinking from the perspective of someone who is waiting, you begin thinking from the perspective of someone who has already received. You stop asking how you can obtain your desire and start asking how you would naturally think, feel, and behave if it were already a reality. This shift moves your attention away from longing and toward fulfillment. Imagine that your desire has already been granted. How would you walk through your day? How would you speak to yourself? How would you respond to challenges? The answers to these questions reveal the state you are seeking to enter. If your desire were already fulfilled, you would likely feel calmer. You would feel more secure. You would feel less anxious about the future. You would carry a quiet confidence because the matter would already be settled in your mind. This does not mean pretending to be someone you are not. It means choosing to occupy a different state of consciousness. The outer world may not yet reflect your assumption, but your inner world can begin reflecting it immediately. You can choose confidence before success appears. You can choose gratitude before the blessing becomes visible. You can choose peace before circumstances change. These choices gradually reshape the way you experience reality. One of the reasons this practice is so powerful is that the mind naturally adapts to what it repeatedly accepts. If you consistently assume that your desire is already yours, that assumption begins to feel familiar. What is familiar eventually feels natural, and what feels natural becomes easier to sustain. Over time, the emotional intensity surrounding the desire starts to diminish. You stop obsessing over it because inwardly you have already accepted it. Many people mistakenly believe that certainty comes after results. In reality, certainty often begins before results. It starts as an inner decision. It starts as a willingness to trust your chosen assumption more than temporary appearances. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means refusing to allow current conditions to define your future possibilities. It means understanding that circumstances are temporary, while assumptions have the power to create new experiences. As you practice this principle, you may notice a growing sense of ease. The desire that once seemed distant begins to feel closer. The anxiety that once accompanied it begins to fade. You no longer feel as though you are chasing something outside yourself. Instead, you feel as though you are becoming more aligned with a reality you have already accepted within. So begin today. Stop viewing your desire as something separate from you. Stop treating it as a future possibility that may or may not arrive. Assume it is already yours. Think from that state. Feel from that state. Live from that state. Let your inner conversations reflect fulfillment rather than longing. Let your emotions reflect gratitude rather than lack. Because the moment you truly accept that your desire is already yours, you stop living as someone who is waiting. You begin living as someone who has already received. And that shift in identity has the power to transform everything. The final and perhaps most important step is to live every day as a blessed, fulfilled, and complete person. This is where all the previous principles come together. It is one thing to understand that fulfillment begins within. It is one thing to believe that what you seek is moving toward you, to practice gratitude, and to assume that your desire is already yours. But the real test comes in daily life. The question is not what you believe for a few moments during meditation or visualization. The question is who you become during the ordinary moments of the day. The state you consistently occupy is the state that shapes your experience. Most people unknowingly live as though something important is missing. They wake up each day carrying a sense of incompleteness. They feel they need more money, more recognition, more success, more love, or more security before they can truly relax and enjoy life. Because of this belief, they approach the world from a position of lack. Their decisions are influenced by fear. Their emotions depend on circumstances. Their happiness is postponed until some future condition is met. Living as a blessed, fulfilled, and complete person requires a different perspective. It begins with the understanding that your value is not determined by external achievements. Your worth is not increased by success or reduced by failure. Your completeness does not depend on whether a desire has appeared yet. Instead, you recognize that your identity comes first. You choose to see yourself as whole now, not later. You stop treating fulfillment as a reward that life may eventually grant you, and start treating it as your natural state. Imagine someone who truly feels blessed. Such a person does not spend every day complaining about what is missing. They appreciate what is present. They recognize opportunities where others see obstacles. They approach life with expectation rather than doubt. This does not mean they never face challenges. It means they refuse to allow challenges to define them. Their sense of well-being comes from within rather than from changing circumstances. A fulfilled person carries a different energy. There is less desperation and more trust. There is less striving and more confidence. They do not constantly seek approval because they are not trying to prove their worth. They do not become consumed by fear because they trust themselves and trust life. They are able to enjoy the present moment because they are not endlessly postponing happiness until some future date. Living as a complete person also changes the way you pursue goals. You still have dreams. You still take action. You still grow and evolve. But your actions come from inspiration rather than insecurity. You are no longer trying to fill an inner void through achievement. Instead, you are expressing the abundance that already exists within you. This shift makes the journey far more enjoyable because your peace does not depend on reaching the destination. One of the most powerful aspects of this state is that it naturally influences your expectations. People who feel incomplete often expect disappointment. They prepare themselves for failure and assume that life will be difficult. In contrast, a person who feels blessed expects good things. They trust that opportunities can appear. They believe that solutions exist. They remain open to positive outcomes because abundance has become part of their identity. As you move through your days, practice carrying this awareness with you. Walk as though you are blessed. Speak as though you are fulfilled. Think as though you are complete. Let gratitude guide your attention. Let confidence guide your actions. Let trust replace worry. You do not need to force these qualities. Simply remind yourself of the state you have chosen. There will be moments when old habits try to return. Doubt may appear. Fear may whisper that you are not enough or that something important is still missing. When this happens, gently return to the truth you are cultivating.